Hello there, and a warm welcome once again to this edition of Women Speaking. My name is Judith Atim. I'm your host. And in this edition of the show, we are looking at the 16 days of activism, whose theme for 2024 is Time to Act Now. This year, the Unite campaign draws attention to the alarming escalation of violence against women. And right now, we want to take stock of the contributions by NGOs and women human rights defenders in the collective fight against gender-based violence in Uganda. And of course, joining me to discuss this are my wonderful guests. Starting from the extreme left is Sheila Aromarach, who is a feminist lawyer passionate about advancing women in law and women's rights, leading a community of young lawyers called the SheLaws Foundation, right?
Yes, please.
Hi, Fancy.
Hi, Judith.
Good to have you again.
Pleasure to be here, always. It's a power place, so yes.
Yes, I am looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this topic. Awesome. I am also pleased to have Winfred Mugambwa, who is an ecofeminist. She's also the executive director of Rights for Her. Winfred, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Good to have you.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Last but not least is Trassyleen Ankunda, who is the team leader at Girls Mentorship. Trassyleen, how are you?
I'm okay, Judith.
Good to have you again.
Thank you.
Yes, so 16 days of activism is about amplifying the call or advocacy to end violence against women and girls, or gender-based violence in general. But when you look at our country and across the world, there's still evidence to suggest that violence against women and girls continues unabated, and the perpetrators in most cases are people known to us. It's people at home, parents, guardians, caregivers. When they go to school, it's maybe their teachers, it's people in the community, it's people who know them. Let's just talk about the effects of violence on women and girls generally. Like, what toll do these kinds of afflictions take on them, whether it's physically, psychologically, and so on? Let's just start from that. Who do I start with? Trassyleen? Yes. Again, Trassyleen, why you? Because again, with your girls' mentorship, you still engage with young girls who are actually victims of abuse and so on.
Yes.
How is this affecting them?
I think violence can never affect anyone positively because violence happens at a point of disempowerment and also at a point of making you feel you're not worthy of anything good. So to begin with, I would say that different forms of abuses actually do affect girls and women differently. But paramount is that girls and women are at the center of abuse, from growing up as a child at home, to going to school in primary and secondary, to university, to joining the workspace. Violence is there for you. Now to transitioning to marriage, violence is still there. So women being at the center of those that are vulnerable gives the perpetrators an upper hand to violate their rights. I would begin with, for example, physical violence. And again, physical violence in a way that we look at maybe men are muscular in nature, and so a man can easily punch you and you fall off. Also violence, physical violence in a way that the other person has control over you entirely. And so how they use you, what they do with you, when they do it with you is up to them. The worst one is the emotional or the psychological kind of violence. Now, often is that we don't actually you cannot look at Judith and say Judith is going through some emotional or psychological violence unless Judith actually shows up and says, this is what I'm going through. And because very many women are afraid to speak, very many young girls are scared, what will happen, what happened to my family, what happened to this guy, what happened to my children if I'm to leave, or what will actually the law be. And some are actually very pitiful in a way that, my husband, what happened to my husband? The pity kind of it. If I go to police, now that means my husband is taken in prison. So how will I take care of these children alone? And so someone becomes comfortable in an abusive relationship or in an abusive setting and environment than actually coming out. And I always say this, that if you find yourself as a victim at a point of where you have to make excuses of the perpetrator or blame yourself, then there is a problem. The other kind of violence I'd say is the financial aspect or the economic violence. And again, this is mostly affected, or this mostly affects women because of the private and the public divide concept, where women are more into the private sector of be home, do house chores, go to the garden and dig, take care of the children, if you have to run something, at least wash clothes, those things, while the men are more in the private divide system, in the public divide system. They should hold those offices, they're the chairmen, they are the general secretaries, they are the EDs, and so it gives them more of exposure, but also a financial muscle. So one is that your partner could actually abuse you because you do not have money, or they support you all through financially. But also your partner could even abuse you when you make the money. You make the money, but they demand to get control over that money. So it again becomes challenging. So the most stigmatizing, I think, among young girls is the sexual harassment. Because if you're to look at especially universities, I was at Makerere University, and I know there are very many cases of young girls, not only even at university, but even in the hostels where they sleep, get men, hostel owners, and they do not have the capacity to show up and say, I'm going to take action against this person because this person is Mr. So-and-so, and for you are a no one. So the violence is in a way that it does control you mentally, and it will get you to a point of where you feel you're breaking down. That is if it is not the physical one where you're going to die immediately. Someone just cuts off your head and we can no longer trace you. So violence entirely is that violence against women, why we look at the 16 days of activism, we are saying it is time to act now. But I think the acting should, or is something that should even be beyond the 16 days of activism, in as much as now we are taking it in a lead in the 16 days of activism. And lastly on that submission is that violence knows no one. It can actually come to you. If it comes to you, if you don't speak up, then it is going to be challenging. Do not stay silent, but also do not silence someone who is actually trying to speak against violence.
Thank you, Trassyleen. Winfred, when we, from what you're saying, you can basically see the dual nature of violence and power. Okay, violence doesn't exist where there is no power. If it's physical, it's one person having more physical power over the other. If it's economic, it's one person having more access to economic opportunities or resources over somebody else. How do we actually strike that balance to make sure that power does not necessarily turn out to be something negative? Power does not become a tool that can be abused by those who are in possession of it.
How can we balance?
Yes.
Who is going to balance?
Whether it's a society or like whoever, like how do we exercise, or maybe let's say just as women, how do we actually ensure that this power that other people have over us does not work to our disadvantage? How do we tame power, in other words?
Becoming sisters keepers. I would suggest that as the first one. When we are, each one is keeper as women, it means that you look out for every woman around you. It might not be everyone, but at least everyone of a woman, if they had a responsibility of that, I'm a sister's keeper, they'll put a watch on those nearest to them. And when we become sisters keepers, it means that we will listen more. We will watch more. When we keep our eyes alert and watch more, it means that we will, might not know what is going on, but we will sense to see that there is something wrong. But when we say that, how can we balance? It might not be easy. But I want to appreciate the efforts so far done. The problem is the people, we are fighting power. Power is embedded in our culture where we are growing up from. Power is embedded in the school structures. Power is embedded in we've seen in the structures of the country. All the structures around, when you see how the structures of even offices, homes, for me, I feel that is power. Man over woman, parents over children, already that is already power embedded in. There is some power already given in. Now, how can we, it starts with everyone. Because as women, we can't say that now we are neutralizing this. That starts from home. So when we start from our homes and cultures, it means that we are now going to have a better person who is being brought up. Many of us, many people are living, we have normalized living with abuses. We have normalized living with the effects we've got from the violations. Very many people are quiet there. First of all, violence robs away someone's voice. Most people who have been violated, we have those who have spoken out. But when you try and follow up on people who have spoken out, it might be even that it is either their 20th time, but they didn't have the guts of speaking at the first time, second time. We even have very many, by the majority, have been silenced to even growing up to the end without even speaking about it, dying inside with them. So when we are living with such people who have chosen silence over voice, not because they want. Some people choose violence over voice because maybe when they speak, they will lose the opportunity of going to school, because maybe it is someone who is taking care of them, or even they are choosing to stay quiet because they saw the repercussions that the other person who spoke out first, and they're like, let me keep quiet. And even they've seen very many people who have not gotten help. So people just go silent because they see that, even if I speak, nothing will change. That is, we have normalized, in our country, we have normalized violations. We have normalized, this year in January, the president pardoned 13 convicts, and 11 of them were defilers. Yes, we understand people change, like how I hear people say that when people change, the person must have changed when they were in prison. Maybe they got saved. Maybe there is no maybe. There is no maybe. In my religion, there is that Luganda saying, "Stani talokoka," like Satan never gets saved. At some point, the president is pardoning these people. It is very good. Yes, maybe the person learned. But are we looking at the other girl who was defiled? For me, I know that we talk about healing, but I don't think you can heal from defilement. You will just learn to live with it. We just learn to live with some of the issues. With violence, survivors just learn to live with it, to cope with it. But again, in such cases, when it will to me, I feel that action, this is the president of the country, that action is going to silence a million people. That action is going to make another woman or a family deep down there having a case of defilement at the police level. And yesterday they told them, you know, you come and you have a mutual understanding of this. This one pays you. They'll say that, oh, they'll go in prison and maybe they will be left. Let me just take this money. It will have a shift in mind in very many people.
It also undermines the trust in the justice system.
It does. And it also takes us back some steps, you know? So, and so us sitting on the table and saying, do you know what? We have, now it's the time to neutralize this. People have put in efforts. Women have put in efforts. Women have spoken. Lawyers at least have tried so much. In this Uganda where we have a law, I don't know, you correct me, where I don't know how you call it, someone has to go and express the action. The real, I hear the real action.
How recounting the trauma, basically, taking them through the same.
That is it. How many people can stand there? So having a table and we sit and we say, okay, now we know this, this is the solution to this. When other parties are not involved fully, when we are not intentionally handling this, when the government is not intentional, even with the good laws, even with the different things. But again, that is why we have the 16 days of activism. We remind ourselves the commitments. We remind the government about the commitment. We remind the stakeholders. We remind the people, even the local councils, we remind them of their duty. But again, even doing accountability, how far have we gone? How far have we gone? And I want to also appreciate people have put in a lot of efforts. You see that there are very many like physical violence. There have been a decrease in physical violence. If you look at the report of the police report of was it 2023 or 2020? The physical violence has gone down. Yes, so it means the efforts are being yielding some
results.
Yes,
sure.
But like the perpetrator will always dress differently. Sexual violence, she has talked about it, has risen. They'll look at how can we now get the woman online these days. It is a lot online. And remember, we don't have any law protecting us online. That really speaks to violence. Yes. So the perpetrators will look for, okay, if here we have failed to get the women, let's now find another place. So as we plan, as people fighting, trying hard to end gender-based violence, are trying their effort, even perpetrators are planning. So in an era where all the perpetrators are still planning on how best they can violate women, it becomes hard. It becomes hard to sit on the table and say, this is it.
Thank you. Thanks, Winfred. Fancy, from a legal perspective, do you think the law has actually been effective when it comes to addressing issues of GBV, especially among women?
The law itself is quite an effective tool, but it comes to us making use of the law. And how do we bring a human face to the law is the issue. How do we implement the law is an issue. Our laws, I think we're one of the countries with the best, like very resourceful laws. We have a law about anything and everything, I must say, yeah. But then how do we work around those laws that are in place? If we're speaking Computer Misuse Act, is it really doing its part? Since the 16 days of activism started, 25th of November, I can guarantee you we have had people's videos leaked without us having, there's a follow-up. Like it's happening. But then we have a law that is against those, online use of things. But then how far does this go? We'll stop at probably someone writes to UCC, Uganda Communications, and then that's how it goes on. And so if we see this happening over and over again, meaning we are not making use of the laws. So the laws being in place, very good, but us working around the laws in place, we're not really doing well. I would say it as that.
So when you look at I'm coming back to you guys now. When you look at, of course, the most common forms of gender-based violence, most of them are sexual in nature. So there's intimate partner violence, there's child sexual abuse, molestation, rape, and so on, forced marriages and so on. And of course, we also know the most at-risk populations are young girls and women, adolescents and young women, and women generally. But then when you now think, the challenge is, how do we respond collectively as a community, and how do people respond to these threats and challenges individually? Can I, if I may start with you, Tracy?
Yes, that's an interesting one, because partner relationships are at a phase where often someone will confuse a toxic person and a person who loves them. You have your phone, your husband or your man, every time he's checking your phone, every time he's checking your phone, every time demands actually to check your phone. Why did you change your password? Why are you putting this on? Why are you putting this? Where are you? What? This and this and that. And so there will be a kind of woman who's like, my husband cares, he wants to know where I am, you know, he wants to know if I'm safe, such languages. And the moment you get to know it, you find it is actually violence. Because even as much as maybe you're married, if someone does not feel okay you having their phone, then don't go ahead to actually follow on their phone that you must be, or you must be able to see what is in the phone. Because even as married people, I feel there is still privacy that one or an individual holds with some of the things within your life. And also scenarios where you find that a partner maybe is earning more than you, and most especially men, they'll use that as a tool to control you, what you can get, how you'll get it. Maybe someone will say, if you don't give me sex tonight, you'll not get money for this tomorrow. And so you find it is at a point of, I cannot afford this. And violence always happens from a point of vulnerability, and vulnerability in a way that you might not be able to actually stand independently and things go as you expect them to be, because you have someone that you depend on. So violence will rob you of your independence, because you cannot afford this and that. But I would also say that violence, again, especially within family, can be attributed to poverty, can be attributed to children, in aspects where a father thinks that the bad child, that one resembles the mother, you know, the good child is the one who resembles the father. And so the pressure now goes to the mother of, how do I take care of this child? But without the father actually making sure that they are able to contribute something in that parenting role. And again, to tackle your question directly, is that even as much as the conversation around violence is a conversation that has most times been, the effects are mostly on women, but again the approaches and the discussions and conversations have again been made more of feministic conversations, or more of women conversations. And we lose it there, because if we are to talk about, you know, violence against women, I have seen, I think I forget the country, where men decided to have a campaign against gender-based violence in these 16 days of activism. And they are saying women deserve to be protected. We are the perpetrators, we must stop doing this. We are responsible for this, we must correlate with one another. We must connect in one soul. And again, that men and women seem to be two different people, in the way that you find, if you are a woman and, for example, you're heading a family and you don't have a husband, maybe society again sees you not as a leader enough.
Somehow you'll always fall short because you are a woman.
You are
That
a
is-
woman.
Yes,
And
that's a
again,
disadvantage society
and
portrays
again,
a woman.
education play. You go to school, your child goes to school. I've already said this. And when you're given exams, you're told who is the head of the family. You put your mother. Perhaps you've grown up with your mother alone. You've never seen your father. They will say it's wrong. And when the child grows up, the child knows my mother cannot be the head of the what? Of a family. So if we don't have conversations around gender shared roles and responsibilities, then the cases of violence keep increasing each and every day. But also is that cases of child violence are usually attributed to early marriages, teenage pregnancies, or also forced marriages, and you find you have trauma from your father. Now you have transferred the trauma to your child who knows nothing about it, and so your child will grow and still transfer the same trauma to the children that they'll give back. So if only would view the idea around violence as an idea that needs urgency or that needs redress as fast as we can, and not only that it is a women talk or that it is a women approach, but a conversation that actually even brings the men. Yes, I have seen someone with a placard that women stop violence against men, and I also believe that that violence is there. I do not dispute that. But again, how do we as human beings interact in community and society, at workplaces? Is it you're the boss, but are you the boss, or you're the one that scares every employee? You're the one that scares every employer that comes around. The tone that you use, is it one that is welcoming? Is it that you shift anger from home, bring it to work, take it to another meeting, and before you know it, when you come back home, you're beating your wife because of what has happened the entire day? So if we can have those emotional intelligence, maybe lectures or attributions in our lives, and also if we can involve the key players to advocate against violence. It is worse with women. Now we are going to have elections next year and the following year. Violence against women. I'm going to
ask you too.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me move on to Winfred. So we're still talking about how communities and maybe individuals can actually respond and mitigate this GBV threats and so on. What do you think can actually be? What would you tell a woman out there who has probably gone through such a problem, a survivor, of how to get help and so on?
First of all, I would advise women not to stay silent. There is always a solution out there. You might not see it because you're still in the circle of the perpetrator, but there is always a support out there when you speak out. So I would advise all women, in case you can't speak out, that is why I started with, let's become sisters keepers. When as women we create that environment of we are sisters keepers in all communities, it means that we will create an environment where another woman can speak to someone, can find confidence in someone that, and tell them, I'm going through this. But until we stop, because because of mostly again culture, some women go either silent, or even sometimes, which I may not call that women are supporting, but because they have been, they're in a fix that this is what they've grown up in, they've also even gone through that, or they've not even seen someone helped. So they'll be like, it's okay, you know, let's not take this far. So it is, everyone is, because truth is, I don't believe that, like how you say that we let the men join us. No, this cause is everyone's cause. And no one can, there is no one at the door to open for you that enter this fight. Please enter, the door is here. It is everyone to stand up and know that this is wrong. That is example you've given, the men stood up. They saw the need. The men of Uganda should also do that. No woman is going to let them in. I would love it if I ever see a space not men say, we want to join the feminist space, please let us in. The door is open. Let them also create a space that we've seen spaces created, and they're speaking. Though always the speaking goes a little what?
No.
So let it be louder.
Amplified,
Let
yes.
it be amplified. So no one is going to ask you to speak. Speak for yourself. Let us also, as men, let them join the campaign. If they see a fellow man who has violated a woman, either be it sexually, who has violated a child, I want to see the men take the lead. When we have the men, because most times people are quiet because they are fearing men. If women are going to see men take the front seat when we are talking about issues of violence, you will see very many women speak up. And as survivors, it is not easy to speak about your story. But let's continue empowering the survivors. Let's continue having in different, if we have different accessibility for healing spaces, if the government could invest in, I don't want to call it rehabilitation because that is not a, but safe spaces for healing. Safe spaces where women can speak out.
And shelters and so on.
Yes, for survivors of gender-based violence. Or even if they don't create those spaces, there are organizations that have created those spaces. If they can invest more in that or even work closely with them, if they don't have the money to start a new space, in every locality, there is either a space or an organization. How can they create, when it speaks to healing, when it is very intentional around there, I believe it will also help us. Yes. So when the government, if it's intentional from all parties, from all stakeholders, starting from the government, from the men, from even us women, we have been very intentional. From the cultural leaders, because they're the custodians of the culture, which is so much fueling the patriarchy, so much fueling the issues that are even leading to child abuse, leading to young marriages. So if we have those custodians join the fight intentionally, if we have religious leaders speak to this, we have had stories of people giving in a lot of money in church, people who have contributed a lot to build churches, doing getting involved in issues of sexual violence, and the church goes quiet because this is someone who is putting in a lot of money. But again, if we even have the religious, because the religious leaders play a big part. If we look at the one place that has people, it is the church. Because on a Sunday, Christians, even if on Friday, you'll see every place full. They play a big part. So it is the different stakeholders intentionally joining the fight, not just using words. Let's have the action. We are having more of words. We are having more of the paper. She told us about the laws. Yes, they are very good laws on paper. So that is word. We are having more of speaking words. Let's now have the action in place.
Thank you. Fancy.
Yes, please.
Your quick thoughts on how we respond to GBV, either individually or collectively.
Very quickly, let's not be blinded by the fact that we have good laws, but the laws have failed us. Let's still rely on the laws. It's a very powerful tool in a society. There's the laws in place. I want you to walk with me very quickly. There's a very good scenario that's still happening, a very case that's still happening. Haj and Hajat, the lady that reported. And you know how Haj's community and, collective and friends have all been bashing at, the lady. So let's not be blinded by some of those things that keep happening in society. Let's take her courage and come out whenever something like that comes about. But let's use the laws because they are there to be used. They were created for us. They were created in our favor. They're really never against us. It's till we use them, then we're able to see this is wrong. What these guys did, now we know the kind of behavior by the person, the accused people is wrong. So we need to include it somewhere in the law so that you the next time your person is accused and you behave in such a way, you know, you're obstructing justice. So we then get to pin you for that. So let's make use of the laws. For me, that would be from a very core perspective, because we actually fear. We'll think, oh my goodness, now I have to report my case, I have to get a lawyer, that's a long process. Oh my goodness, I have to go to police, I may be asked to pay some money, that's a long process. But there's always spaces, you know, civil society spaces that offer pro bono. Let's make use of them. Let's get there's a lot of information that we're not making use of, and one of them is the law. But even to those who hold the law for us, can we have a human face of the law? Like, can we make people understand the law, like what she's doing? Can we make people understand the law and not let it be for just the lawyers, well, which is what we studied, but can everyone be able to understand that I can pin you for what you have done? I will pin you for, you know, for revenge, you know, revenge pornography against me. I can pin you for delaying to pay me, yet we agreed on this. I can pin you for slapping me in public, you know, in the market. I can pin you for that, and you will be called out for that. So let's make use of what's already there in place, and not first look for any other alternatives, but let's make use of what's there in place. For me, that would be it.
Thank you. So we've seen how you can respond, and also
Just a quick one.
yes.
I think one thing that I forgot is on media, the role of media on making sure that gender-based violence is actually up to zero. I know media can shape the agenda, but also media can still be used to promote gender-based violence. I'll only use 2 scenarios or 2 songs that you are all conversant with. There is this song of, I think Judith or something, that Mubi Yajana Kavera, Rachare Tarore, something like that. That the woman came with a Kavera and now she's coming with a lorry. As if maybe entirely throughout the marriage she did not do, she never contributed anything. Another quick one that we always sing, I've seen this one of Leta Mama no wange vekube. Like you're telling someone, bring your mother, and I bring my mother, and they beat themselves and they beat themselves, you know. So people grow up. Sorry to laugh. People grow up and all their mind is like, it's okay for women to fight. And you know, you're watching the video and they're like, oh yeah, give her. Yeah. So in a way, it shapes it towards the negative attribute of, and it limits the violence that you're trying to say no, zero to this violence. But also in the videos, in the adverts that we see, what role plays do women actually play in any advert that we watch? So if we can make it more of a positive role contract than mostly the negative part, I think we can actually promote or aim towards zero gender-based violence.
Interesting. So like I said earlier, we've talked about how to respond to GBV and the threats. We've also, Winfred, you also talked about how survivors can find help, you know, whether you have shelters in place or so on and so on. But in some instances, some of the spaces are not even there. I am talking about the rural woman, for example, who is cut off so far away from, is not even aware that she can actually get help. And you find them, say maybe she's beaten, she runs maybe to her relatives, that is if she has somewhere to run to anyway, and then at some point in time they're going back to the very same abuser, and it just continues. It's just a never-ending cycle of violence. How do you help such a person? How can such a woman be helped to actually break that cycle and set herself free? And that's to any of you.
Me, I think that advocacy is the best tool, but also awareness. Like we did mention, some women actually are not aware that their rights are being violated because they do not know those rights. They feel that if a woman slaps me, he loves me, or he's teaching me. If a man slaps me, he's teaching me. Or even when you go to your mother and tell them the same story, they'll tell you, even me, your father beat me, but I stayed in that marriage. So you will manage. And in a way that women themselves have not embraced the art of actually empowering or standing in, like she said, sisterhood, standing in for fellow women, that you're going to see someone being beaten and your first question is, oh, she deserves it. Oh, why was she dressed like this? Oh, where was she coming from? Oh, yeah, let them beat her, let them beat her. Oh, she should actually leave. Maybe even someone is just waiting for you to leave and they get married to that same man. So women, as women, the solidarity needs to be strong enough that if someone is beaten, they feel they can actually reach out and talk to you. In communities, everyone in the village has a church that they pray from. Whether it is whether they are Muslims, whether they are born again, whether they are what, there are those places that at least almost everyone goes to pray, whichever day they feel they actually pray from those areas. So I feel the first remedy should be that the role that religion and the role that religion does contribute, because we said that these voting boxes, they can reach your village, but information will never reach your village and development will never reach your village. So you have to see how you work within the local means. And I feel that this should be entirely a role of church. We have mothers' unions in church, but also even those mothers' unions themselves, they are discriminatory against women. They'll tell you if you're not married in church, you cannot belong to our mothers' union. And so women there who are being beaten, perhaps, and even not part of mothers' union, will never get a chance to actually say, look, this is what we are going to, this is what we are going through. How best can we be able to navigate these challenges?
There is a group for those ones who are not married.
Yes, but then again, the stigmatization and the discrimination that now, for me, who is married with a ring, I am the righteous one, I am, I have arrived, I've made it in life, and you know how women and conflict is something that women, I don't know, some women, okay, I don't know why they like fighting fellow women, I don't know, but it should only come from a point of love that, look, this is a challenge I am facing. And you see, people wait for things to happen to them to be able to advocate for them. If my husband has not beaten me, perhaps I'll find no need of saying now, why should I actually go and fight for the other one who is being beaten, because you think they are voiceless. But the moment you're hit is when you remember, oh, now I must do something. That we wait until it affects us to say something about it. And I also know that in our different communities, as young people especially, we have a role to play. We shouldn't just come to Kampala, study and stay there. Once in a while, go to your communities and do this sensitization and awareness.
So the other thing I'd like to hear from you is, from any of you again, do you think with time, perceptions of men towards women is changing, and is it changing positively, or do you still think there's still a long way for us to go in that regard? Maybe.
Let me first add on what she said, then I get to that. Okay. I think we need to localize solutions. Get solutions that speak to the different localities or the different women. Yes. When I said around the shelters, I encourage the government to set up even those far outreach regions, because this is something eating up the country. It has been there. It's something that encroaches on the productivity of the country, on the productivity of the person. So the government needs to invest. Even where they can't, they can't reach where that is, they can't, let them go there and at least put there something, or even empower women. And when we localize solutions, it means that we are going to involve the last person. We are going now to change from top to bottom solution as we draft the solution, meaning that now the approach is going to be from bottom to top. So the solution is going to speak to the people. They'll feel the involvement. They'll feel part of it. But most times solutions are brought from up to down. So the person down will not really feel part of it. So implementation sometimes will have gaps, because the person who set
There's
either
no buy-in from the bottom.
yeah. And when you ask that, I would say that there are positive trends that we see, that yes, some men are now understanding. Some men have joined the fight. Some men are speaking out. And for me, I'm a believer. I believe that at one time, we might not achieve it as the set 2030, but I believe that at one time, it's work in progress, and I believe at one time, these men will understand that how they create it, that they always, one thing in that they always use it. A woman is supposed to be submissive. A woman is supposed to be, the way they interpret the Bible in their favor, they'll then learn and then interpret it differently, that because the woman was got from the rib and not from the backbone, it means that we are equal. It means that I have to love this woman. I have to take care of this woman. I don't have to treat this woman as a slave. So the moment we'll get, I believe the men will at one time get the wisdom and understanding to interpret the Bible and the culture in a better way that favors them and favors the women and favors the next generation. Because when they don't, it means they will not achieve also them, because they speak for peace, they speak for security, they have big visions. They look at, there's a vision they have in their head. And given that fellow men have joined the board of fighting gender-based violence, it means that they are going to also talk to other men. But now we are having a problem of discrimination. Who is a woman? Who is not a woman? We are having, when the gender diverse person tell you about their violence, because they're not accepted in community, there is collective rape, which is done by relatives. We want to help this woman become a woman. Let's have them test a man. So they have like 5 men or 10 men in the room, rape this woman. So until we know that if we are fighting gender-based violence, we are not speaking to one woman, this kind of woman, but we are saying that if violence is violence, rape is rape. As long as someone has been raped, if a woman has been raped, let's not look at the woman is either a gender diverse woman. That one, it's okay to rape with them. The woman is a disabled person. That is okay. There's nothing good they can do. And we see that we are fighting gender-based violence towards women in their diversity. It will come to an end. But if we are still looking at women in a selective way, we are still going to be, we're still going to be in a vicious cycle of violence towards women.
Thank you very much.
May I share my 2 cents on that?
Yes.
So me, I think, well, Rome wasn't built in one day, ideally. But then also us understanding very much that let's not rush to get to 2030 and say we have actually achieved. I think we have missed out on the fact that we need to hold back and say, guys, how far has this been? What have we been doing? I long for a global celebration where we don't term it as a celebration, but rather a reflection. If we say this 2024 is past, 2025, 16 days of activism, who hasn't done their part according to how we started, with the launch of, the 2030 agenda? How have our leaders or the presidents or the different ministries on a global level really, because I know this is not celebrated just within Uganda, but everyone joins in. So how have the NGOs done their part, and how far have they done their part? Can everyone hold the other accountable? And let's say that's the celebration of the year. And not say, let's just wear the orange and let's just say ABC, which we can also do, but let's get much more intentional. Let's hold back a bit. We can't keep moving and we're not holding back, and we'll just keep moving endlessly.
Without taking time to
check in with everyone. How are you guys doing it? What haven't you done? You were supposed to have done this by then. Those who give funding, have you checked in with your people on how far their projects have run, which I know well you do on an annual basis, but now get even very specific to the 16 days of activism. Are you just going to be holding talk shows? Are you going to just be serving sanitary pads? Those are really just examples. Not that I'm calling out people for doing that, but just really examples that we can relate to. So let's get much more intentional in how we celebrate these particular days, because they have a lot. We are here 16 days, could have been 16 women on day one were violated, and just in one village, and we didn't know. But I mean, the world is saying we are on 16 days of activism against GBV.
In other words, 16 days of activism should not just wait for November.
Exactly.
It should be a daily, sustained conversation and action-driven thing.
Yeah. Every day. Let's not just wait for this. Let's wear orange every day of the year. Let's wear orange every Wednesday. Let's make a post about it every because it happens every day. She literally mentioned they gang rep you. So they didn't wait for a particular day. They probably doing it for other people in different families. So let's have it as intentional as possible. But let's also hold back and have a reflection on this, because we are driving at a very fast rate and we're leaving so many people behind. And then we'll come back and blame when it's 2030 we haven't achieved. We'll start blaming different stakeholders. So let's hold back a bit and think about it.
Thank you very much. And I'll give you each a minute to just give me your concluding remarks, and we just call it a wrap. I'll start with you. Just your final thoughts. But if you could actually conclude by looking at, I think you've actually done it already, looking at basically, because we're taking stock of what the NGOs have done. So do you think we've actually, the civil society or NGO world has done enough in actually addressing these issues of ending GBV?
Well, I could go first.
Yeah.
I think they've done quite a lot. They have done beyond their mandate. They literally do some things of creating of shelters, which should be, approved homes of care for probably children, which should be a government's role at the end of the day. But then NGOs have stepped on it. So they've done quite a lot. And NGOs in their diversity. I could say this is one of the ways an NGO has, brought this out. So this is something very worth recommending. But of course, there is really need to support them. There is need to be a part of them, because they work closely with us, the people, than how the pyramid or the ladder is. They are much more closer to the people. They are more human than the laws that are there in place. So there's need to really closely support NGOs. If it's registration of NGOs, I know there's so many that are critiqued that fail to register in a year. They walk through registration for a year, and that's something that you can do in a very short time. Support them in every single step. Their taxes, support them in that step. Do not hold them to the neck or choke them because probably they haven't, done as it needs to be done. So let's give them their moment to shine, but also allow them, support them in every single step. If they need to reach out to police, why does police have to question, oh my goodness, Winfred, you do this, but it's against the law. No, we shall not allow this to happen. Can you listen further to them on why they actually want to do this, why they want to work with this particular woman, why she's brought this case before you, and then before you judge them about the fact that there is a law against it. That's not how the law works. The law is actually human. But then if you're coming from a very crude or rude perspective as a police officer, then you're not doing your part as a law and keeping person of society. So let's work with the non-government organizations, the community-based organizations, the young Atunkunda's spaces that are just coming up. Let's work with them, because 50 years from now they'll be the ones holding the world for us. And then if we haven't helped them now at the foundation level, then we haven't done well. So let's work with them.
Thank you, Fancy. Thank you very much. Winfred, your parting shots.
Thank you so much for this space. Speaking about women's issue is part of me. And about the 16 days being every day, I feel women are doing it every day. Women are doing it every day. And the 16 days are more onto accountability. Are more onto looking at recommitting, meaning that you can't recommit what you've not checked. We unite to, it's just within all that we've done towards the end of the year. Can we take stock? Can we hold people accountable? And like you've said, NGOs are doing, civil societies are doing work that government would have done. How are they supporting? So I would, as I close, I want to appreciate everyone's effort. We are not yet there, but we have done something. To the women who came before us, who did a lot of work, it was really hard for them. They created the platform for us. I appreciate them. And I urge you everyone, this is everyone's cause. Today it might not be you. Today it might not be your child. Today it might not be someone close to you. But tomorrow it would be someone close to you. Let's avoid discrimination, because violence is violence. It comes in different forms. Today we might say that the person is being violated because of their gender, because they're gender diverse. Let's leave that. Those ones it could happen to them. You don't know how it's going to enter your house. So let's join forces. Like how the theme is unite. Let's unite. Let's unite as women. Let the men unite with the women, because men are from mothers, meaning that you must be part of this fight. Let's unite as the government. Let's the government intentionally join the fight and implement the laws that are in place.
Thank you so much, Winfred. Trassyleen, let me hear your final comments on this.
I think my final comments, I'll say that change begins with you. And when you change yourself, go out there and change others. I don't need to know about SDGs. I don't need to know about agenda what. I need to know that what is wrong and what is right. I don't need to see someone beating another person and then I have to first go and make reference and say, you see, SDG 5 is saying gender inequality, blah, blah. If what you're doing is wrong, do the right thing. And if you're doing the right thing, continue doing the right thing. And lastly, violence is not the right way to go. You can do something. You can speak up against violence, and you can promote justice and fairness in that way. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. We've been taking stock, of course, of the contributions by NGOs and women human rights defenders in the collective fight against gender-based violence in Uganda. Of course, we're having this conversation in light of the ongoing 16 days of activism, 2024. The theme for this year is Time to Act Now, and the campaign is drawing attention to the alarming escalation of violence against women. My special guests, Trassyleen, Winfred, and Sheila, thank you very much for your insights on this show. My name is Judith Atim, and it's been a pleasure having you, and we hope to have you join the conversation some other time. This is Women Speaking. Until then, bye-bye.